My name is Steve, and recently my family and I made the decision to move to New England. Inspired by the region's crisp air and vibrant foliage, we saw an opportunity among the quaint, neglected log cabins scattered throughout the landscape. With my background in carpentry and home repair, I decided to embark on a new venture, buying and renovating these cabins. One brisk October morning, I received a call about an old, abandoned cabin deep in the woods. It was off the beaten path, but the owner was willing to sell it at a low price, perfect for my first project. Approaching the cabin, I was struck by its weathered charm. Surrounded by dense trees, the windows were shattered, and the wooden door creaked loudly as I pushed it open. Inside, dust floated in the air, and the floorboards groaned under my weight. As I began inspecting the cabin, I noticed intriguing details. Tools I had just set down would disappear, only to reappear in unexpected places. I heard faint sounds and felt occasional drafts, though there were no obvious sources for either. Even Emily, who visited occasionally, mentioned seeing strange lights flickering in the woods at night. Despite these oddities, I remained determined to focus on my work. Each day brought new challenges. Repairs that seemed straightforward often took longer than expected. The atmosphere in the cabin always felt heavy, as if it held secrets it was reluctant to reveal. Late one stormy evening, as thunder rumbled in the distance, I encountered a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. It watched me intently, radiating an unsettling presence. Heart pounding, I gathered the courage to speak up. "Who are you? What do you want?" I asked, my voice trembling. The figure remained silent, but seemed to exude an overwhelming sense of melancholy. Slowly, it dissipated into the air, leaving behind a profound stillness that settled over the cabin like a comforting shroud. Driven by curiosity and a growing sense of responsibility, I delved into the cabin's history. I learned that it had once belonged to a reclusive family who mysteriously vanished decades ago. Locals spoke of their absence with sadness, but no concrete explanation. With determination, I pieced together fragments of stories and sought out clues hidden within the cabin itself. Each discovery brought me closer to understanding the cabin's past and the family that once called it home. The experience left a lasting impact on me. I continued renovating cabins, each one revealing more about the lives and challenges faced by those who built them. Our move to New England marked not just a fresh start for my family, but a personal journey of discovery. In restoring these cabins, I found fulfillment, preserving history and offering solace to structures that had weathered years of neglect. Recently, I've been working on something pretty special, and I thought it might be a nice change of pace to share this story with you all. For the past few months, I've been knee-deep in sawdust, paint, and old nails, all in the name of restoring a wooden cabin for my brother and sister-in-law. My name's Sam, and my brother's name is Mike, while his wife's name is Lisa. Now, let me set the scene. Mike and Lisa have been living in Denver for the last few years, and the city life has been taking its toll on them. They were craving a retreat, a place where they could escape the hustle and bustle of the city and reconnect with nature. They wanted a weekend getaway spot, and that's when I decided to step in and make their dream a reality. I found this charming, albeit a bit dilapidated, wooden cabin nestled in the foothills of the Rockies, just a couple of hours away from Denver. The cabin had been in my family for years. My grandparents used to use it as their weekend retreat. However, over the years, it had fallen into disrepair. So, I thought, why not restore it and turn it into the perfect escape for Mike and Lisa? The cabin was located in a small, picturesque town called Evergreen. It's a place with stunning landscapes, serene lakes, and beautiful hiking trails. Basically, it's everything you'd want for a peaceful retreat away from the chaotic city life. But when I first visited the cabin, it was far from serene. The wood was weathered, the roof was leaking, and the interior was filled with cobwebs. It was clear that this was going to be quite the project. My first step was to bring the cabin back to life, and I started by addressing the structural issues. Replacing the roof was no small feat. I spent countless hours up there, removing old shingles and replacing them with new ones. I'll admit, I wasn't exactly a roofing expert, but YouTube is a great teacher. It wasn't long before the cabin was dry again, and I could move on to the next task. The next challenge was the interior. The walls were a mix of peeling wallpaper and dated paneling. I decided to go with a more rustic yet cozy look. After hours of sanding, painting, and staining, the inside of the cabin started to look like the retreat I had envisioned. I added a new stone fireplace, which, let me tell you, was a workout to install. But it was worth it when I saw how it transformed the living room into a warm and inviting space. One of my favorite parts of the restoration was updating the kitchen. The old cabinets were in desperate need of replacement, and the countertops were worn out. I chose a modern, yet classic design with a farmhouse sink that I thought would complement the cabin's rustic charm. I even added some open shelving to give it a homier feel. I could already picture Mike and Lisa cooking up a storm and enjoying their meals in this new space. The last major project was the outdoor area. I wanted to create a space where Mike and Lisa could sit outside and enjoy the natural beauty of Evergreen. I built a new deck and added some comfortable outdoor furniture. I also planted a small garden with local wildflowers to brighten up the area. The cabin now had a beautiful outdoor space for them to relax and unwind. Throughout the process, I had some help from friends and family, but a lot of it was a solo effort. I think my dedication and elbow grease really paid off. The final result was a cabin that was both modern and nostalgic, a perfect blend of comfort and rustic charm. When I finally finished the restoration, I invited Mike and Lisa up to Evergreen to see their new retreat. Their reaction was priceless. They were amazed at how much the cabin had changed and couldn't believe how well it turned out. Seeing their smiles and hearing their excitement made all the hard work worth it. Mike and Lisa have since been using the cabin as their escape from Denver, and it's been wonderful to see them enjoying their new retreat. They have spent countless weekends there, hiking, relaxing, and making memories. I'm thrilled that I could give them a space where they can unwind and find solace from their busy city life. So that's the story of how I restored the cabin for Mike and Lisa. It was a labor of love, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to create something special for my family. If you ever find yourself in need of a retreat from the city, take a page from this story and find your own slice of paradise away from the hustle and bustle. Sometimes, the best way to reconnect with yourself is to reconnect with nature. Oh, and there's one last detail. A curious thing happened during the restoration. As I tore up the old floorboards, I found a hidden trapdoor leading to a dark, musty cellar. It wasn't on any blueprint, and no one in the family knew about it. The cellar was filled with old, forgotten items. Dusty antiques, rusted tools, and peculiar symbols carved into the walls. There was an unsettling feeling down there, like I wasn't alone. I decided to seal it back up, thinking it best not to mention it to Mike and Lisa. After all, some secrets are better left buried. I like to share an unnerving experience I had while restoring my late grandpa's old cabin in northern Minnesota. If you're into eerie tales, buckle up, because this one gave me chills. Grandpa's cabin was a beloved spot for our family. Nestled deep in the woods, it was a rustic haven where countless memories were made. After he passed, the cabin fell into disrepair. My parents wanted to tear it down, claiming it was beyond saving and too dangerous. But I felt a deep connection to it and decided to restore it. Little did I know, I was about to stumble upon something far more unsettling than rotting wood and broken windows. The cabin stood isolated, surrounded by dense forest that seemed to swallow the sun. As I approached, the sense of abandonment was palpable. My first task was to clear out the debris and make the place safe enough to work in. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of mildew. It was clear no one had been here for years. On my second day, I started stripping the old wallpaper from the walls. Beneath the layers, I discovered strange markings scratched into the wood. Not in any recognizable language, but in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. At first, I chalked it up to the musings of a bored child or maybe Grandpa's old attempts at decoration, but the markings were unsettling. One evening, as I was cleaning out the attic, I found a trunk covered in cobwebs. Inside were old family photos, a few journals, and some bizarre objects, one of which was a small wooden carving of what looked like a creature halfway between a human and an animal. It had an unsettlingly lifelike quality. I decided to take it home with me, figuring it might be worth something. That night, as I slept in the cabin for the first time in years, I was awoken by faint noises. At first, I thought it was just the old house settling, but then I heard what sounded like whispering, distant and unintelligible, yet oddly urgent. I chalked it up to my overactive imagination and went back to sleep. The next morning, I noticed that the small wooden carving was no longer in the trunk. I searched the cabin but couldn't find it anywhere. I thought perhaps I'd misplaced it or left it at home. Days turned into weeks as I worked on the cabin, and the strange occurrences continued. Tools would go missing, only to reappear in odd places. One evening, while sanding down the old staircase, I heard a loud crash from the attic. When I went up to check, I found nothing out of place, but the strange scratching on the walls seemed to have gotten more pronounced, almost as if it was growing. Then came the night of the full moon. The night was eerily silent, save for the distant call of an owl. I was sitting by the fireplace, reading one of Grandpa's old journals. It was mostly mundane entries until I came across a page describing a ritual involving the carving I had found. According to the journal, Grandpa believed it held a protective power against something he never specified. It spoke of whispers and shadows and a warning to never bring the carving inside the cabin. My blood ran cold. I rushed to where I had left the carving back at home and was horrified to find it missing. In its place was a new carving, almost identical, but with eyes that seemed to follow me. The same whispering I had heard in the cabin now filled my home. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Back at the cabin, I tried to focus on finishing the restoration, but the unsettling feeling only grew stronger. My final night there, as I lay in bed, the whispers turned into full-fledged voices, and I could swear I heard footsteps pacing around the cabin. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to writhe and twist. The next morning, I packed up and left. The cabin, though nearly restored, felt more like a trap than a sanctuary. I never returned, and to this day, the carving remains a mystery. I know it sounds like a classic ghost story, but there was something undeniably wrong with that cabin. Maybe it was just the decay playing tricks on my mind, or maybe there was something more sinister at play. Either way, I learned never to ignore old warnings. Some things are better left undisturbed. So, if you ever find yourself restoring an old cabin or handling strange artifacts, remember this. Sometimes, the past is best left untouched.